Just
Tell me,
Jeremy
are
here.
we?
Slow here.
I'm following your guys' lead, so.
Okay, looks like we're live.
Okay, well, I'll kick it off then. Hello, everybody, and as people are starting to tune in, we're going to try something new that we haven't done for a year, which is when we see an important piece of legislation, we think it might be important to do a actual live caucus. Let me just I mute. There we go. Kind of a live caucus to invite the public into walking through a complicated piece of legislation like what we're going to see tomorrow with the bonding bill. The bonding bill obviously is a big, traditionally just a big debt bill where we put a lot of projects together on a credit card in your name and go out and spend money for a lot of this essential projects that can't be met with local resources. But because we need a super majority of people in the House and Senate to pass this bill, we need 3/5 majority. It's not a simple majority. There's a lot of votes at stake, and so sometimes people shop around and add earmarked projects to the bill to get the votes to pass. So we're going to look at this bill and ask questions of each other like we do in normal caucus. And if you guys have questions or comments, go ahead and comment on my page or on the New House Republican Caucus page, and we'll try to answer those questions. So, Margaret, do you want to bring up the bonding bill, and we can kind of walk through and talk about it? Or Draz, do you want to have some comments before we get started?
Sure. I'm wondering if Margaret can bring up the capital 2020 capital budget 5th special session spreadsheet that's got all the bonding projects in it. That might be a good place to start.
I have a couple of different spreadsheets here. I got the one that's the bonding projects.
Yeah.
I have the one that's the there's another one that's the debt service, and then I have another one that is this supplemental spending.
Yeah, let's bring all three, but let's start with the overall the one with all the bonding projects in it. So for those listening, I have the pleasure of serving on the Ways and Means Committee Ways and Means Committee in the House, and we reviewed this bill as a committee last night, and it came before us. And we're going to share with you some of the materials that they actually share with us in committee. Probably with about the same amount of speed that they go over them. We won't have quite the level of expertise here talking about these tonight, but can tell you that this is what you generally see. The bonding bill is overall this is a quintessential horrible omnibus bill, multi-part omnibus bill. It's got a huge piece in here. If you add them all up, it's about $1.8 billion of borrowing and spending and some tax relief. But there's a bonding or a borrow and spend component, which is normally supposed to be one bill by itself, and that's a huge amount of borrowing, 1.13 or 1.14 billion dollars of borrowing and spending on projects all across the state of Minnesota. And that's what's included in this bill. And we'll go through some of the details, but as you can see, this spreadsheet is 450 line items on it. But it's got a huge bonding piece. On top of that, there's a tax cut part that provides some tax conformity and essentially tax cuts for Minnesota businesses and farmers and other businesses, looking at Schedule 179 deductibility. and conforming that to the federal government, which will mean an immediate tax cut in both the current and next biennium for many of the businesses. Also, there's a straight out let's spend money on these different projects section of the bill, a supplemental spending bill, if you will. As we all know, government is fully funded in the state of Minnesota. The state budget was set back in May of 2019 for the full 2-year biennium. We don't have to spend any more money in order for the government to be fully funded. And so it's fully funded, but even given that, government always wants to spend more. So they're coming forward, the different departments through the chairs in the House and the leadership in the House wanting to spend more of your money. That's the third part of this bill, and we'll review that too. So with that, do we want to take a look at the spreadsheet, you guys?
Well, if we can go back up to the top of the spreadsheet, you know, one of the questions a lot of people have been asking me about that have looked at this spreadsheet of the bill is, why are we spending so much money on higher ed when in a post-COVID, I mean, during COVID, obviously classes are going online, but even post-COVID, I think a lot of businesses and schools are finding that online learning is, or online working is sufficient. Do you think, are there projects in here on the higher ed side that are building new, you know, classrooms and stuff that we should be running through the committee and re-scrutinizing, not just because of the deficit, but also because maybe higher ed has changed a little bit?
Well, first of all, before we get started, and that's a great question, Jeremy, before we get started, for those tuning in, you'll see on the very top of the spreadsheet, it says all figures in thousands. So you got to add 3 zeros to the very end of each number to get what it means. So if you go down on line 11 on this spreadsheet, you see the total GO, or total general operating bond amount there. It says 75, it looks like it says 75,381. You got to actually add 3 zeros onto that. So it's actually $75,381,000. So add 3 zeros onto every number, and that's the amount that's being expressed in this sheet. But back to Jeremy's question, line 6 shows that there's HEAPR in there, the Higher Education Asset Preservation Replacement, $38 million, about half of that $75 million to the University of Minnesota. And that's to repair broken buildings. HEAPR is actually leaky roofs and things that you need to do to current buildings in order to keep them in good repair. And for those of us that are more conservative about how we go about things, we might consider that to actually be something that an area of spending that might actually make sense, taking care of what we already have instead of continuing to build more. But go on, Cal, do you want to talk about some of these, or?
I'll chime in here as we go down through. Go ahead and keep going. Personally, the HEAPR part, if you want me, my thought of that is, yes, that's money that we should spend, asset preservation, but it should also be in the institution's operating budget every year. You know that you're going to have, you know, a roof has a 20-year lifespan, or a boiler system has a 30-year lifespan, whatever it is. You know, you've got a building, it has an asset, whether it's paint, bricks, sidewalks, roofs, boilers, windows. Each of those components to make the building has a lifespan, and this should be in their normal budget. We shouldn't be borrowing this money. It should be in their annual operating budget.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So with that, I think we can continue to scroll down. You do see there are some new building offerings at the U of M and also at MnSCU in the Department of Education. But back to Cal's point, so, and that's what I think would be smart budgeting if these universities would actually include it in their budgets. But you know, they're used to state government bailing them out and paying for all these other things. Why wouldn't they use their other dollars to continue to develop classes for underwater basket weaving or whatever their flavor of the day is. Extending their mission, if you will, to things that aren't quite as that are more sexy than putting a roof on your building.
Yeah. And I think it's really important also to understand our state, because of the governor's lockdown orders and pain we put on the economy, we've lost over $100 billion in revenue in the state, people's incomes and businesses. And so if you take that times our income tax rate in Minnesota, we're about a $4.7 billion revenue shortfall for our budget. So that's money we're going to have to go in next session in January and start cutting government in order to balance a budget, because we have a constitutional requirement for balancing the budget. And we need to do this. And so we're right now with the bonding bill talking about spending more money, and every dollar we spend on bonding is going to cost us $1.40 with the interest we're going to be paying over 20 years. And so it's important we make our cuts. I think important we make our cuts first to our budget and then circle back, because when we're talking about some of these projects like overpasses and bicycle paths and things that are not essential for the state, we're going to be having to offset that with cuts to education and healthcare and other what many people will deem essential services for all Minnesotans. So
speaking of bike trails, I wonder if Margaret would want to scroll back up to the top. One of my favorite categories of bonding bills, of course, we seem to have more bike trails in this state than we do bicycles, or at least miles of bike trails. And each of these bonding bills has a pile of additional trails to build more. And if you look under the DNR section here, here are the trails. Dakota Blazing Star Trail, 1.7 million. Camp Ripley, another $1 million for a trail there. Heartland State Trail, $2 million. Itasca State Park trail connection, $2 million. Dakota County wants a Lake Billsby Dam for $6 million replacement or improvement. City of Ely, trailhead construction, 1.5 million. Hutchinson Otter Lakes restoration, 3 million. And you can read down through there. There's a bunch of them. City of Mankato riverbank restoration, $7.2 million. City of Rochester Cascade Lake Park. Some of these are parks and other things, but many of them are trails. You'll see ATV trails, Riverfront Trail in Winona, another $2 million. Each of these continues to add on more and more miles of trail that we are then in a position that we have to maintain into the future, from general fund money. So that's where we run into problems.
And a lot of communities pay for these trails locally themselves. The city or the county or even a township might put money into fixing up trails. When they're in the bonding bill, they're paid for by all taxpayers. And so some taxpayers that have already paid for something, paid their share of something locally, then is being asked with the bonding bill to pay for those projects statewide. I just want to catch up on a few comments that have come in. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are not supportive of a bonding bill in general. We're just making sure we do our due diligence in going through and explaining a lot of these parts of the bill. There's a lot of calls for firing commissioners. It's important to know that the House doesn't actually fire commissioners. It's the Senate that confirms commissioners or chooses not to confirm, effectively firing commissioners. And so that's, call your senator and tell them not to adjourn sine die tomorrow, and instead stay in session and have hearings on, for Jan Malcolm or other commissioners that they may wish to not confirm.
Okay, let's keep going down, Margaret. See what our next section of this $1.8 billion monstrosity is. The MPCA, recycling assistance, capital assistance, $7 million for Ramsey and Washington County. Help them recycle there. And recycling extension in City of Coon Rapids. Clay County's got a resource recovery campus. I don't know what that is. It'll be interesting to ask those questions. Bowser Board of Water and Soil Resources, wetland replacement program. That might be one that actually is again, important spending, but the question is, should it be in a borrow and spend bill, or should it be part of Bowser's and the DNR's budget to begin with? That's monies to provide for wetland replacement when we're building roads around the state to comply with the massive Wetland Restoration Act and the state implementation of it.
Hey, also, it's important to note that all of the green highlighted lines in here are money that's coming directly out of the general fund. We're not bonding for that. Is that right, Draz? That's actual cash that we're spending?
You look at the next to last column, it says GO, that means general operating bonds. GF means general fund money. Yeah, so that's very likely cash from the general fund. Is that how you read that, Margaret?
Yeah.
GF.
Yeah.
So
we're facing this enormous deficit that we have to try to slash, and we're spending $8 million of our cash, of our checking account at the state on.
we're digging the hole deep. We're digging the hole deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, GO is general obligation bonds, so that's debt, and GF is general fund, which is cash.
Yeah.
So we should be throwing the shovel out of the hole, and we're continuing to dig instead.
Okay.
Let's keep going down, Margaret. Oh, and the zoo, 13 million for the zoo, of course. The zoo takes
wait a minute.
money.
I thought Walls already took care of the zoo unilaterally by giving them like $6 or $7 million.
Oh, there's never enough money for the zoo. Never.
The animals already ate that. They need some more feed.
Yeah, those are just a couple bales of hay.
I mean, I love the zoo, but when I went there last year to get a tour and learn about what their needs were, remember the monorail at the zoo? They want to take the monorail out, and then that entire monorail track they want to build into a boardwalk, basically a wooden deck that would walk around the zoo. People don't want to do it on the ground; they want to do it up high.
Sounds like recreational spending, huh? We're one of two states that owns a zoo. Us and I think North Carolina. We could sell the zoo to a private interest and wouldn't have to do this every time.
Again, some of these things are really nice to have, but as far as we need to really determine what is essential and non-essential projects.
All right, Department of Administration, Amateur Sports Commission. Those are your skating centers, skating rinks.
Okay.
$6 million of skating rinks in the bill. We can keep going. Military affairs. Those are readiness centers for military affairs departments. A military museum. I don't know what or where that is, but $13 million. Do we need to have a military museum? Apparently, we're going to dig the hole deeper for all of these. Department of Public Safety, Emergency Operations Center. State government wants to build another new state emergency operations center. I don't know where that's located. $30 million.
Actually, the current one, it was in statute that basically when you have a Chapter 12 emergency that you're supposed to set one up. And they basically made one out of, I think it's in the Department of Transportation. They just took some spare room they had there and set it up. But it looks like they want to have like a whole new, brand new one permanently.
Government does that.
Find a purpose for that morgue over there that they bought for no reason.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to cut in really quick. So like Chris Mellum says, can you pick and choose items?
No.
Chris, this is one vote on this entire multi-subject omnibus spending and debt bill. We only get one vote, up or down.
No, we can vote to amend something out of it or amend or put something else in and swap it back out for something that's already in there. You can bring an amendment, but you've got to get 68 votes in order to get that to happen. And,
Well, Draz, one of the things I was interested in listening to the Ways and Means meeting, and maybe you could shed some light on this. It sounded kind of like they weren't going to allow amendments. That if there was a deal that was put together by the Senate and the House, that they were going to have an agreement to have no amendments. What do you think about that? Is that going to happen?
Well, it's happened so far in the process. It basically shut us down in Ways and Means Committee and said, don't amend this bill. In other words, wink, wink, if anybody tries to amend this bill, the majority on this committee is going to vote against you. and it's going to go forward. And they could do the same thing, and very likely will on the floor, but that doesn't prohibit us from bringing amendments.
Right.
It just kind of fixes in, and they're going to shut down any amendments you bring and outvote you.
Yeah.
So we go
Okay,
back to-
go ahead.
that just plays off of what I've been saying since the beginning of the all of the emergency stuff. Is we are actually, instead of looking at the individual pieces that we see, like a mask mandate, or I can't go see my kids hockey, or I can't go to my favorite restaurant, we are actually in a constitutional crisis. So what we did, what was just talked about with the fixes in, you can't have amendments to a bill, is you had a handful of people got together in a room and hashed out what they thought was a good compromise, and the rest of us are forced to swallow it. So your representative, which would be the four of us on here, and it would probably be out of the 201 legislators, it's probably about 194 or 192 that will not have a say in how this bill is structured, whether they can amend it or not. Like they said, as just said, the fix is in. If you brought an amendment, we let you talk about it on the floor, and then it'll either be ruled out of order, non-germane, or
Or defeated.
It changes the
Or
budget
just,
structure of this,
vote it
so you
down.
can't be heard. Either way, it will be voted down, voted out, or ruled out of order. And once again, we see the government is run by less than 10 people when we really think that it's run by 201 legislators and a governor.
Let's keep going. These grants to political subdivisions, the Department of Public Safety for police buildings and training facilities, $50 million, Department of Public Safety. Department of Transportation, here's road monies throughout the state. These are GEO and TF is Trunk Highway Fund.
Yep.
There apparently those are all a mix of those. You'll see a bunch of road projects. These are local road projects in different parts of the state.
Yeah, and it's also important to know that there's a nonpartisan funding formula that determines the greatest need for roads based on surface degradation, location, importance to the community, commerce, and these roads listed here are all earmarked by legislators to kind of cut in line in front of the other projects. So it's not just general funding, it's actually specific projects. And then a lot of people have been commenting about, they want safe roads and bridges. They don't want bridges to collapse. Anything that's funded in this bill, these projects won't be actually started for 6 months or 2 years or even 4 years from now. So when it comes to actually talking about a jobs bill, these jobs are not going to happen anytime real soon. And the people that really need jobs are, hairstylists and bartenders and waitresses and airline pilots. They're not the people that are actually building the roads.
But in the scheme of things, I think we probably generally agree, though, that roads are probably a fundamental function of government we should probably be doing. And if you compare all the rest of the stuff in a bonding bill, roads would probably be up there next to HEPR and some other things, water and sewer, of things that are actually legitimate spending. So for instance, there's a project in my district, right there, City of Zumbrota, that's in the bill. And an interesting thing for people listening, I don't expect I'm probably going to vote for this huge bill, but it's important for me in this process to represent my constituents and do what I can in order to get projects to this point, so that if indeed the bill does pass, that they are able to see some of their money come back to them as well, instead of them just sending money to all the different projects around the state. So we will each, you'll see each of us will often, bring forward small bonding proposals that could be part of a final bonding bill, even if we don't plan to vote for the bill. Some of us have visions of a small bill of 100 million of all road money.
Yeah.
It never happens, but a bill like that, I could probably vote for.
And Alan Burlingham has just said, how about no road work for 1 year? You know, there's certain maintenance that needs to be done on roads where if we don't do it soon, then sometimes you have to resurface the whole road. But it's important to know that the bonding bill that was passed in 2018, so 2 years ago, which was the largest bonding bill in state history, still has projects that are kicking off right now on roads and wastewater and such, you know, stuff like that.
Okay, let's keep moving on here, Margaret. We're on line 177 out of 450. Multimodal programs and grants. There's an important topic. And there they are. Port Development Assistance Program, Minnesota Rail Service Improvement Program, 4 million. Safe Routes to School, 3 million. Grassy Point Bridge gets $3 million, wherever Grassy Point is. And Minnesota Valley Regional Rail Authority, $10 million.
I think that's right here in Northfield where I'm at. I think they're redoing a train station. That might be a people train station. That might be what that is.
Is that Grassy Point?
No, the Minnesota Valley Regional Rail Authority, maybe.
Well, clear off the highway, man. $10 million coming.
Oh no, it's that right below that, City of Northfield. That's where I'm parked right next to Gustavus right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's
going,
keep moving. So we're up to line 200 here. Rail crossings on local road systems, rail grade separations. Now many of these road ones are safety type items, and a strong argument could be made. You know, the rail grade separation project in Red Wing, for instance, you know, you're separating the rail grade from the road and having less incidences of people coming across the path of a railroad, which is good. But again, how do we pay for these? Do we borrow this money, or do we pay for it with cash and start actually repurposing or reprioritizing our budgets? Met Council.
Boo.
Cal, Cal, this is your section.
Boo. Met Council, yeah. So the Met Council, actually, just about every piece of this should disappear. We're looking at trails, all these trails and parks here from where are we at 216 down to 221. Those are parks, 224, 225, 223. The city owns a park. The city owns the Como Zoo there. The city can take care of the zoo. The state shouldn't be involved in that at all. It's a city zoo. If you're not making enough money, you either need to shed off a few animals or charge a little more money to take care of your zoo, just like any private industry does. But all of those parks, they should be spun off to the counties and the cities that they're wholly owned in. And then we've got the Inflow Infiltrate Grant Program, that's water. That should be spun off to the counties as a JPA, Joint Powers Agreement. Joint Powers Agreement, so that the counties that it services can run. People that are living in the Iron Range really don't need to be funding the sewer and water of the metro. That should be wholly funded and operated by the metro counties that it serves, and not by taxpayers statewide. And then trail system, this is just another piece of some of the trails and parks that we talked about up above, but we run it through the Metropolitan Council, and then you don't really know which one of the parks and trails that 5 million there on 214 is gonna get. And then of course, busway capital improvement. Well, you know, it wasn't that long ago that we had private bus service here in the city, and the government basically, well, the government didn't run them out of business. They were having an operating fund problem, and the government just came in and took them over instead of letting capitalism take its course and reinvigorating this. And if people want to ride a bus, there would have been a bus service come along within a year or two after that to fill that need. But the government stepped in, and now we're subsidizing bus rides. It's less than 25% is actually funded by the ridership, and the rest of that comes out of state money. So Once again, people in the Iron Range, Western Minnesota, Southern Minnesota, Albert Lee, Princeburg, folks all over the state are paying for a bus system in the metro that should be funded wholly within the metro and not by Allstate.
All right, let's keep moving.
Sorry, I get a little windy sometimes.
You did a great job. Department of Human Services has $27 million. The biggest item is Regional Mental Health Crisis Center grants. There was some of these 2 years ago or so, Margaret, 3 years ago.
Mhm.
There were some of these. It looks like another set of those coming forward.
Right.
Again, why isn't this money coming out of the HHS budget instead of burdening all of Minnesota?
Well, in mental health is becoming a more important issue, especially as government becomes larger and puts the squeeze on taxpayers. We saw that with the ag industry, where mental health for farmers has become so important because of all these extra regulations and taxes on the farmers.
Okay, Veterans Affairs, and then Department of Corrections. They got asset preservation at the DOC of $25 million. Fire suppression in a couple of buildings, building renovation, communications equipment, and then grants to political subdivisions, local units of government, Martin County, Prairie Lakes, Winona County Jail. There's one. Winona County's part of it's in my district, and we're starting, I think, a new precedent here. If we fund a jail in a county unit in a local county government out of this bonding bill, these jails throughout Minnesota, we've got a set of DOC, Department of Corrections, rules that we're operating under that force these jails to continue to upgrade and spend more and more money to build more and more jails when the ones in the counties around them are, for instance, in Wabasha County, we built one $21 million, I think it was 15 years ago or 12 or 15 years ago, 72 beds. Currently, I heard just yesterday there were 3 prisoners in there as of last week. So 3 prisoners in a 72-person bed jail, 17 employees. That's what we have in Wabasha County. And Houston County is the same scenario. Winona County sandwiched in between you guys, and they are now looking to build their own jail when on both sides of them, they have counties with severely underpopulated jails that their taxpayers are struggling to pay for. This is just senseless behavior, and we are taking this problem and putting it into a bonding bill and funding it in a way that will cover up the wound in the reality of the underlying problem. And it's a small amount of money in this particular bonding bill, but I don't think we should be doing it.
Okay.
Okay, Department of Employment and Economic Development, Cal Barr's favorite department. One that I think could probably go away if we got to the point where we could actually cut government in the state. That department could probably go away. But look at all the money we're spending on developing their properties throughout the state to continue to build them out and make them even more robust and have more longevity. That's what's going on in this particular bill. We've got, I can't avoid it. There's a civic center in Grand Rapids, $5 million. 5 or 6 years ago, we funded, you guys, 3 civic centers in Rochester, Mankato, and St. Cloud. All of them were losing money, and we built them all bigger so they could all compete against each other more and lose more money. And that's already happening in Rochester. I don't know about Mankato and St. Cloud, but your wish will come true. And now we're going to do the same thing in Grand Rapids.
And I just
definition of insanity.
I want to point out on line 272, that's a $20.5 million spend of all taxpayer monies on a business park because Google is interested in relocating are building one of their data centers in Becker. But Google has oogles of money, and they want to relocate, they want to build something here. So we're going to take taxpayer dollars to subsidize one business to come in here and build. And there's incentives that we give certain businesses for handouts and not others, where we should be taking all this money and lowering the business taxes for all businesses to attract everybody and have an equal playing field. But that just that's just not happening.
So one more piece of obfuscation that you'll notice in this bill, we've already talked near the top, we talked about the state zoo. And under the Met Council, we saw the Como Zoo. And if you'll happen to look at line 280 here, Duluth Zoo.
Three of them.
Zoos, the animals are spread far and wide through this bill.
Yeah. All right.
Where's the manure handling equipment? Okay, there's the rest of the Department of Employment and Economic Development. We are going to, this is $162 million, and they're going to claim all this spending is going to put people to work and create jobs and all kinds of other things, when in reality, every dollar that is taken to pay for this bonding bill is taken from a hardworking family or business that would otherwise be turned around and invested in their community and jobs. So we kill jobs with the bonding bill in order to create jobs that are jobs that are engineered by the architects of the bonding bill.
Government jobs.
Not a net increase in jobs. We're not doing anything that's helpful to this economy. We're just redistributing, picking winners and losers in the economy.
It's actually a net loss in jobs because this has cost us $1.40 for every dollar we spend by the time you pay all the interest over 20 years.
Yeah.
Great point.
So now we get into the PFA, the Public Facilities Authority spending. This is another one of the core functions of government is, roads, bridges, and then here we have wastewater treatment and drinking water. This is probably something we can all agree on is important, but there's, certain sewer projects that are in here. A lot of these are because of the pipes and stuff are failing and people are at risk of not being able to flush their toilet. But there are some of these projects where the system is running fine, but the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency puts tighter restrictions on water discharge, and that triggers additional projects that have to be done. And this is where we could go and thin out the projects from essential and non-essential projects.
Wasn't it a few years, correct me if I'm wrong, because I can't remember the city for sure, but wasn't it like Montevideo or somewhere out in that neck of the woods? Tim, you might know, where the city had just built a brand new water treatment facility and it wasn't even 7 years old yet. MPCA came in and shut it down. And,
they were discharging into a pond, and it was working fine. Yeah, but because of the new phosphate rule, they had to run a pipe miles down to a river and discharge the same water.
Right.
Going into a moving water was fine, and so that was a $5 million bonding request that cut the line in front of other ones. In full disclosure, I have a bonding bill request. I worked hard to get into this bill for the city of Vernon Center, right there for $7.9 million. And the city of Waldorf below it, also my district. And these are towns of just a few hundred people. They've spent millions of dollars of their own and doing all the maintenance they can, but they need help, and the state has a program in place to help fund rural wastewater. Again, core function of government, but we should be thinning out the ones that are non-essential to the ones that are absolute essential ones to happen now.
Okay. Housing Finance Authority, build more houses for people.
Yeah, there's $100 million. There was $116 million. Where's the $100 million?
Oh, it says additional projects and appropriation bond section. Must be for.
Yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah, it's a total of $116 million for housing projects. Now, these aren't just for building city-owned properties. These are for subsidies for builders. So they'll go in and pay a big chunk of the building costs for-profit builders if they hold it for so long in low-income rents.
And we'll have to look, you guys, was it in July when they brought the bonding bill last time, and when it didn't come through, they wanted to add into this bill, and we should look at the language to see if it's in there, but they wanted to make single-family homes eligible for these bonding dollars to simply make it so the government can actually build a home for a single family. And we're at the point of no return, it appears, and this is not good news if you're not into redistribution of wealth. But we have people who are struggling to pay off their homes who are being taxed to death, and then that tax money is being used to buy homes for somebody else that might not be working.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, back up a little bit.
Okay.
Right there. Oh, 367. Isn't this what it costs just to sell the bonds? That's our
Yep.
overhead cost to sell them. That's not interest. So we're going to spend $1.3 million just in payroll costs and administrative fees to go on the open market to go borrow some money. It'd be like filing a you want a home loan or something like that, you got to pay a $500 processing fee up front. Well, here's the state's processing fee, $1.3 million. So we can go borrow $1.8 billion.
And that doesn't even include the debt service.
Correct.
Yeah, so add 40% onto the cost of this bill, another $1 billion in interest paid over the life of these bonds.
Trunk highway
Right.
bonding article.
Yep.
So these are bonds that are borrowed against the trunk highway fund, which is some of the gas tax money that we have.
And which will be running short since people haven't been driving as much this year. So that will be a big push next year for raising the gas tax on Minnesotans.
So
What are all these
here's-
truck stations? Are those like way stations, Cal?
No, that's a garage. That's a truck garage.
Oh,
So
okay.
Eden Prairie, it's a $15 million garage. Mendota Heights, it's a $15 million garage. $10 million garage in Clearwater. I guess they're just not they don't have as fancy a garage up there, I suppose. They didn't polish marble on the floor or something, I'm not sure. But New Jordan, they're back up there pretty, and it's going to cost us $2 million just to design a new headquarters in New Virginia. But those are garages.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a new headquarters in Virginia.
Yeah, that's the headquarters.
Okay.
Okay.
Next
All right, we can
section.
skip next section.
Oh, the equity article. Yes, there's an equity article in the bills, ladies and gentlemen. So
Of course.
if you are from Minneapolis or St. Paul, likely, or certainly from the Democrat caucus in the Minnesota House, you've got groups of people who are your constituents, and you bring them special things out of the idea that we need to redistribute wealth to selected groups of people based on where they live, what their history or culture is, or a variety of other things. And this is what you've got right here.
Yeah, and reminder, this is not bonding. This is not bonding. This is actual cash.
This
out
is
of
cash
state
from the
checking
general fund.
account. Even though we know we're going to be running enormously short on money, $5 billion short, we're still going to be spending this stuff on non-essential things versus taking, we're going to be making cuts out of your education and healthcare budgets next year.
Yeah, we're digging the hole deeper for $2 million for the Indigenous Peoples Task Force in Minneapolis.
I like
Or
line
juxt-
410
or-
myself.
Or Juxtaposition Arts in Minneapolis, whatever that is.
I don't know how you do
All right.
juxtaposed art.
I struggle to say it.
It's a theory or a theater.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
So,
What
That's-
kind of
it's
when
theater?
just like the
when your hole's deep, you need some art centers in order to make it deeper.
So the juxtaposed art center, does that mean the people sit on the stage and the performers are in the seats, or how does that work?
That's like one of
Sounds
those.
No,
one
no,
of those-
I've been there.
That's like one of those parades where all the participants walk around the The,
Yeah,
They walk
the
around the
units in the
floats.
parade.
yeah, I have one of those parades in my district. All right, next page, Margaret. So $30 million for equity payments to people of color.
I
And if
see
you're not-
line
if you're not in a-
424 will make our friend G real happy.
Yeah, and if you're not in a selected group, you're out of luck. You have
So-
to pay for somebody
So
else's.
here's a list of the appropriation bonds. There's $100 million for infrastructure for housing bonds, and then the $30 million for the MPCA. Public television gets $15 million. Congratulations, public TV.
Dig the hole deeper.
You saw electric car owners get, we're going to build their gas stations for them now, right? That's 424.
Public TV should be sold and go away.
Big Bird makes plenty of his own money.
Big
Okay,
Bird
so
needs
here-
to fly.
Worked on HBO now,
Big
So-
Bird needs
so
to
it's
flap
left
his wings and
of
fly.
nonprofit sector.
Yeah. So here, ladies and gentlemen, is a summary of the bonding bill. Your general obligation bonds. These are the 20-year bonds paid for out of the general fund, paid for by all taxpayers, 1.1 billion, and then the transportation fund / general obligation bonds paid out of the gas tax, or part of it is 243 million. And then the cost of the user financing, I think, is actually local. Maybe local governments bonding through the state, but they're actually paying the debt service on them. And then the general fund, this is cash out of our checking account, $38 million. And then the trunk highway bonds and appropriation bonds. So $1.8 billion total for this bill.
Hey,
And
this
then,
is,
and then I just want to say one thing before you say, Tim. They are going through and finding stuff that projects that did not start yet in cutting. So they did make cuts. Those are the two little lines below that. The $5 million River Center parking ramp from the 2018 bonding bill that never started. They're canceling that one, and then another one for 2.8 million.
2.6.
Or
Tim?
2.6.
you know, one of the things to understand, and thanks for your patience, I'm in a good place where I can talk for a moment, is we kind of throw out general obligation bonds, trunk highway bonds, and then we throw in a little phrase called appropriation bonds or revenue bonds. And understand, hold on a second here, I start talking and then I miss a gear. Appropriation bonds don't officially go on the tab into what appropriation bonds are is you have to vote to pay for the bill for those each year, each biennium. And so when we vote for that bonding this year, it doesn't show on our tab. It's a way of spending money without accounting for it this year, but next year we'll be beholden to pay for it. So like a good place that you could see that is the Senate office building that was built a couple of years ago. That was built with appropriation bonds. And every 2 years we have to vote for those payments. If you don't vote for the payments, those bonds default and the state's bond rating goes belly up. So we're beholden to pay for that. But it's very unsecured bonding because you have to have a legislature vote for it. And so the interest rate is higher too. So it's kind of like, as I tried to explain to young people, it's kind of young families, it's kind of like buying diapers on your credit card. Okay, you're paying for essential things, but you're paying a premium on the cost of those. We do these appropriation bonds every single time because it's a way to make a bigger bonding bill without it showing up in the debt this year. But that's a real problem for me.
Okay,
It's a good
let's
analogy, Tim. I like that. Diapers.
Diapers does it.
That's it.
One other thing that I want to explain to the listeners and viewers, and again, just because so that people understand, I'm out in a truck right now helping with harvest, so my time is limited when I can talk. But when you hear us going through, we're trying to have a caucus for all of you in the room. And so when you hear us kind of raising questions to Margaret, or we're not 100% sure, that's what we do in caucus. So you are invited in right now. You're invited in to join us in this conversation of what we do every time to prepare for these bills. So I want to say that as an encouragement to you that we're bringing you into this. But if you're wondering, hey, these guys don't all know what's going on here. It's because we're discussing this and doing our work even as we have you on here. So thanks for joining us. This is kind of what we do with bills.
Margaret, can we scroll over to the to that kind of half-page spreadsheet that Bill Marks put together?
Let me see. Which one? The one on the supplemental spending or
It
the?
says summary of budget items, October 12th.
Okay.
It's just a half pager.
Let's see. Summary of budget items.
I have it on my computer. I could share it if I knew how.
It's at the bottom of your Zoom. It just
Right in the
says
middle.
share page, and then you pick out the page from your screens. But I think I've got it.
Okay.
I think this is it. Let's see. Oops. Wrong one.
So I talked to some members of the Senate about an hour ago, and they've been meeting to caucus this bill as well. But it doesn't seem like there's an agreement yet. There's a lot of stuff that's been added to the bill that they're not pleased with. So we'll see if we have an actual agreement coming in tomorrow, and we meet at noon we gavel in.
Yep.
Yes.
Is this the one?
Yeah, this is the one.
Okay.
So
Can you enlarge that, Margaret?
Enlarge it. Yeah.
Top middle.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of screens on top of it here. I have to keep moving around all these toolbars.
It's right in the middle on the top. There you go.
Yeah.
okay, so there is the general fund impact of the bonding bill. You'll see there's a debt service. The question is, how much is this bonding bill going to cost the taxpayers in the current biennium, which this fiscal year, fiscal 2021 ends June 30th of next year. And so between now and then, this bill, if it passes, will cost us $52.5 million to service the debt on in what, 8 months or 9 months, whatever that is.
That's
10 months.
just the minimum payment due on your credit card bill that comes in.
Yep, and then to the right, you'll see fiscal year 2022-23
That's ugly.
is $90 million that it will cost in the next 2 years after that, that the taxpayers of Minnesota will have to pay just to pay down the debt service, the principal and interest on this big credit card, on this big $1.8 billion bonding bill that we just talked about. The supplemental appropriations, that was the straight out cash spending in the bill, and spread out over each of the 2 biennia. Taxes is a tax article in the bill. It's about a $200 million reduction in taxes over the next 3 years.
Can't see how that's a violation of the single subject rule.
Yeah, but see the tax portion, I didn't see it in the spreadsheet, but that's a permanent, that's law. So that has to be paid for every year. And we're taking this $200 million to pay for, or we're doing this $200 million cut. We're taking $100 million out of the reinsurance healthcare fund that was used to lower the healthcare cost, healthcare premiums for people. But are we going to continue to take it out of that fund indefinitely, or we're going to try to find a new home, a new account to pay for that out of?
Well, the premium security part is on the bottom there. So if you look under, it was interesting in Ways and Means Committee, they brought this spreadsheet forward and you look at the design of it, the cost of the bill is that top part of the spreadsheet, 173 million in the current biennium, 215 in the next biennium, $1 million. And then they're saying, but these items offset it. They did some bond refinancing here over the last several months and saved the state $42 million because interest rates were low. So they're going to claim that money against the cost of this bill in order to make it look smaller by reducing that 173 million in the current biennium by $41.666 million, and then by another $25 million for the increased support we're getting in FMAP from from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And then the $100 million from.
Well, hang on a second. Hang on. The FMAP, that's a healthcare. I mean, that's like the assistance we get from the federal government to help pay the premiums because we have more expensive healthcare costs. They're taking that money. They're taking that money and applying it against the bonding bill.
Well, they're doing that conceptually in this spreadsheet in order to show you it really doesn't cost that much to do this bonding bill because we're already saving money in bond refinancing, more FMAP money, the premium security money that they're taking from reinsurance, and it comes to look at 166,000 or million in savings. It only costs us $7 million in this next biennium to do this $1.8 billion bonding bill. That's the way it was presented to us in committee, and the Democrats like to do that, or the advocates of the bonding bill. Sometimes the only people who love bonding bills more than Democrats are Republicans.
Did we get the rust undercoating? You know, did we get the undercoating on this? In the
Yeah, I don't know, but it's really cheap. $7.1 million. Look at there. See, it says it right in the ink. We got to do this. Got to do this.
This is a sales pitch. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A sales pitch is the right word. And look at, if we didn't have a tax bill in it, we'd be saving money by bonding. We'd be saving $83 million.
Yeah, we'd saving $83 million by selling the people $1.8 billion down the creek. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a sales piece. It's a sales.
It's really a no interest in payments for 36 months. No money down. You know.
Yes. Call now. Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, that spreadsheet was very interesting, and we see this in the legislature all the time, and you got to kind of call it out because those items that they offset things with are items we need to keep there in order to offset the $4.7 billion projected deficit that we're going to be seeing anyway to begin with.
Well, I definitely see there's money that's come in from the federal government for paying for health insurance premiums, especially for Minnesota Care. And I've seen that savings, the money that we get from the government, be applied as an offset in two different things, right? We use it for the reinsurance to show how much money we're getting for reinsurance. And then we also talked about how it's saving us money in healthcare for Minnesota Care. You can't use the same money and put it in two different, formulas as sales pitches. It's got to be one or the other.
Let's go to Article 9 on House File 1, Margaret, the very end of the bill. That's the cash part of the bill. $38 million of general fund cash money paid out. There's some trunk highway money in there too, I think.
Where's the money for the riots in that bill? Is that in the cash?
That's
portion?
that's where we're going. Yep.
Oh, so you want the actual bill?
Yep. It's at the very last page, so you can scroll all the way to the bottom of the bill. Page 155, if I remember right.
It's House File 1, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got it up.
Oh, you have it? You
Yeah.
want to share it?
Try. Never
Okay.
shared before.
You guys got to teach me how to share that.
Oh, it's pretty easy. You just go to the little toolbar at the bottom.
I got that part. Then a desktop 1,
Yep.
whiteboard. I don't know what I'm doing from here. Safari.
Yeah.
Page
One of
150, page 153, Cal.
I'm trying to figure out how to share it. I got it up. I just don't know how to share.
Well,
Make sure you don't have anything inappropriate on your screen.
No, that's closed. Optimize. All right, you keep looking, Margaret. I'm going to keep trying, see if I can figure this out.
I got it open if I can figure out how to share.
Yeah, I do
there's
too.
something at the bottom. There's a toolbar at the bottom.
It
Yeah, I
says
got
more.
that. It says share, hit the green thing, right?
Yeah.
And then it brings up another screen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
pick the screen it's on.
pick the screen you got. Yeah.
Probably
Oh, I
Safari.
see here. Open system preferences, right?
No.
No.
Just share
Nope,
and then click
that's
the
not it.
screen.
If you can get it, Margaret, go ahead and train me later. We have
Okay.
people at home want to get into this.
File 1.
So one of the concerns that both the Senate and House Republicans have is that we don't want to sit and bail out Minneapolis, bail out the mayor of Minneapolis and the mayor of St. Paul and the governor for making dumb decisions and not suppressing all the riots that were going on. And when we see $10 million going to cover the costs for putting out the fires and suppressing all the rioters, it's frustrating to make people in rural Minnesota who sat and watched that incompetence on TV and have to now pay for that cost. There's also property tax abatements. In other words, we're going to tell the businesses in the neighborhoods who were damaged during this that all taxpayers in Minnesota will cover the cost of your property taxes as a bailout.
Yeah, actually, that was passed by the Executive Council using some weird provision in Chapter 9 of statutes that gives them the authority to just outright spend money.
Right there, Cal.
153.
Margaret's got it, I think. I'm not
Page
scrolling.
153, Margaret.
Right there, it says natural resources for civil unrest costs. This is because they had to bring in the
Starts up here,
DNR.
actually, though. Civil unrest costs, right here.
So $5 million from the trunk highway fund. So we're going to take highway money to pay for some of the civil unrest costs in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. See how tightly that's worded? Minneapolis-St. Paul area. Civil unrest. It doesn't spell out what it is, who gets money, or which area it's for. But it's, again, we are paying for the ineptitude of the mayor of Minneapolis and the governor of the state of Minnesota, who couldn't even uphold the rule of law because their ideological groups that support them want to defund the police and undo the police in this state, and they couldn't stand up and say, you know what, guys, you're wrong. We got to bring in the police and bring in the National Guard and stop this destructive
You mean
behavior.
those 19-year-old cooks?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
only in Minnesota do we have ineptitude, and now they're trying to reward and cover up that ineptitude. The people of Minnesota don't want that. At least that's what I'm hearing loud and clear from the people in my district. They say HE double hockey sticks, no.
Yeah, there's a lot of Facebook comments on my page here under the post telling us to send the bill to Black Lives Matter. We should be really assessing these, fees locally, because this is the city of Minneapolis where it happened, and their mayor chose not to do anything about it in time. They should be really making adjustments locally. Instead, we're building them civic centers and hockey rinks.
Well, I added this up, you guys. There's about 3 or 4 sections that say civil unrest in this direct appropriation section. Adds up to about $12 million of the people's money to Minneapolis and St. Paul in a blanket way that has not been vetted at all. It was just placed in the bill. As a matter of fact, I asked both the chair or the author of this bill, the chair of the committee, and anybody in attendance in the Ways and Means Committee meeting last night, how these provisions got in the bill. No one knew how they got in the bill. It was crickets. It was embarrassing. That's the type of system that we have here, where the radical left in this situation is inserting this in the bill, trying to get Republicans and rural Democrats to vote for this, all of which will probably be kicked out of office if they do.
Yeah. Well, I just want to offer a few closing comments from me, and we'll kind of go around the table here. But, I have a lot of concerns on how the bill was constructed. This is way too big. It's not a jobs bill because these jobs aren't going to be ready for many, many months or years, 2 years probably on average. And there's some good stuff in the bill: transportation, roads, bridges, wastewater. But there's a lot of stuff that just needs to be cut. I am looking forward to there being negotiations over the next 12 hours to come to an agreement with the Senate and House Republicans to pare this thing down. But as it is now, there's some pretty toxic stuff in the bill, and I'm going to have a hard time voting for it, even though I support so many of the projects in the bill. Tim, do you got comments? You got still online? And then and of course, everybody also says don't give a bonding bill until the governor ends his peacetime emergency. I just want to speak to that briefly. If we were to say, yes, Tim, give up your powers and we'll pass a bonding bill, the minute he signs the bonding bill, he can reissue his peacetime emergency and we can't touch it for 30 days. That's how that's how poorly the law is crafted. So it's not a good negotiating tactic to say that we'll give you this huge multi-billion-dollar bill if you give up your powers temporarily.
You there, Tim?
As much as possible. There's less oxygen on the sea. Stay next to the grass as much as possible.
Hey, Tim, are you there? We're closing, doing closing comments. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, we're switching fields right now, so I'm kind of trying to juggle. I just want people to know that it's really important to. I'm glad that we're doing this, and I think we need to do this more. This is your government, and it's really important for you to know what's going on. We definitely don't like this bill. You hear that in our tone. Sounds like a lot of you don't like this bill, but this is the stuff that your government does all the time, and so stay engaged. We're going to try and do this more. Give us feedback, and if there's something we're not doing that you'd like us to do, let us know. And then, with the election 3 weeks away, if you don't like this stuff, make sure that you vote. Make sure that you vote because elections matter. And the reason why we're seeing a lot of this is because the state of Minnesota elected a governor who believed that all this stuff is important.
Yeah, and obviously this has turned into an elections bill, which is why it's getting really pushed by both Republicans and Democrats 3 weeks before the election, because people think they need this to get reelected. Margaret, you can stop sharing the screen and we can go to Cal.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess in closing comments, it's been hit on a few different ways, but this is a couple of years ago, we complained about the triumvirate, the governor, the majority leader in the Senate, and the Speaker of the House writing bills at the end of session. Well, as Representative Drazkowski just mentioned, or Steve, Ways and Means Committee had no idea how these provisions got in the bill. The author didn't even know how it got in there. So we don't even, it's not the triumvirate. At least they were owning up to their work. We have no idea where this comes from, and yet we're supposed to vote on it. You can't hold anybody accountable because nobody says, what, staff wrote this? I don't know. Nobody knows. Your government is unaccountable to you. And this is one of the biggest problems that I see. And this is what we are trying to do by having you in our caucus. I mean, this is actually how we talk in caucus, except for I probably drop a few more F-bombs and a lot more profanity. So I've been trying to behave this evening, but this is what we do. This is how we go about looking at these things. And this is our way of showing you just how intransparent your government is, just how over the summer, I've been telling a lot of people that we currently have a system of government that would make John Gotti proud of just how corrupt it is. And I think that we need to reform that. And it starts with, as Tim said, at the ballot box. So those are my closing comments.
And leader of the caucus, Representative Drazkowski, what are your final words on this?
You guys, I have been in the legislature now for 13 years, and this is by far the ugliest process in the entire legislative process. I've seen it happen over and over again. This is a gross violation of the single subject clause, something I know that Cal has been leading us very well on. We've got three very distinct, unrelated items mushed together in a big, huge honking bill here to begin with, and they're doing this for political reasons in order to get this big pig to pass. And the process itself, and I don't know if I need to remind the listeners or not, but they need to get a supermajority vote of the Minnesota House of Representatives to get this to pass. They need 81 votes instead of 68 votes. You normally need 68 votes or a sheer majority in order to pass a bill. So they need 3/5 or 81 votes out of 134 members to pass this bill. And so that means just one caucus can't pass the bill. The majority caucus doesn't have enough votes, they need to then get some votes from the minority caucus. And they try to pack this thing full of things so that there's enough fruits and nuts and other things falling off the tree for everybody to have. And this is as clear of vote buying as you get. And the chair of the committee, the speaker of the House, the majority leader in the House, all work together to get the necessary votes. And that might mean they got to put another $3 million in for Evelyn, or another $5 million for, Plymouth or wherever, depending on where that member is that they think they can get their vote from. The other thing that happens in regard to this is they continue to push forward the false notion that you have to have bonding bills passed in your district in order to be reelected. This is your reelection bill. If you don't have something in here and vote for the bill, you're not going to be reelected and sent back to St. Paul. So they use fear as well in order to do it. As a matter of fact, I've seen it enough times that never is true. Never, ever, ever. It's as false as you can get. That has nothing to do with people's reelection. It has much more to do with the integrity of the individuals and their work in their district for their constituents. Much, much more important than whether or not they bring home a bike trail or a zoo. So that's all I have to say, but thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. This is kind of how we work a caucus, and we try to tear apart each bill and learn more about where it came from and what it means to our constituents, and what are our options strategically to have any impact on it in order to make it better, but it does get further down the road in the process.
Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and leave your comments below, and let us know if this was helpful to do the deep dive. Thanks for tuning in.